my name is Ben Akers. I'm co-founder, co-CEO along with Gav there. And we're going to be doing this as a podcast recording this evening. So if anyone's got a problem with that, sorry. I'm probably going to give a safety warning just in case we do talk about suicide and mental health. So I really want you to look after yourselves first. So if any of this comes up for you, yeah, please look after yourself first. It's really, really important for us at Talk Club that you do that and catch up with us afterwards. Anyone who's wearing a Talk Club t-shirt here is actually part of the gang. So please come and grab one of us afterwards, okay? So as I said, we're recording there, we're recording here. We're mainly seeing the back of your heads, but if you do ask a question at the end, we will have your voice on there, and we'd love your permission to use your voice. What we're going to do is we're going to ask these amazing people some questions. I've got some questions for them. But I think what we'll do is we'll begin with a check-in. So at Talk Club, it's all about how are you out of 10. And I would like you guys to tell us who you are, what you do, and how you are out of 10. I'm going to pass this mic over.
Hello, everybody. My name's Danielle. I'm people partner for a marketing agency called Procter & Stevenson. And how am I up to? I'd say 8, a solid 8.
My name is Mark Winterflood. I am the Wellbeing Manager at Hastings Direct down on the sunny coast of Bexhill-on-Sea. I said I was a 9 earlier on, so that's where I am.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, my name is Rowan Gilmore. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. I work in the NHS in crisis services in Bristol, so I work with men and women in crisis. I'm also a Talk Club trustee. I was delighted to join the organisation last year, and I would say I'm probably about a 7. Sun's coming out, which is nice. That's always a good thing. And really excited to join this panel this evening and to meet everyone.
Thanks for sharing. My name's Gavin. I am the co-founder, co-CEO of Talk Club. I'm also a therapist too, as my other job. I'm a 9, could be a 10 if Arsenal win tonight. So I'm a bit nervous about that, to be honest. But yeah, I'm going to be a 9. I'm a 9. Nice to be here.
You're checking it at a 9, Gav. I like
checking
that.
it at a 9.
Yeah, I'm an 8.5. Gav, we have these things. Gav always sort of, his numbers are always slightly higher than mine. Your number's your own. That's where it is. I'm 8.5, but I'm on the nerves. It's sort of like it's. We need to get this thing over and done with quickly because we've got a game on. Not that you lot aren't important. No, we didn't think about the scheduling when we did this. So, okay. So I want to sort of. We've got some starter questions for you guys, but I want it to be an open discussion, which is a bit harder because we've only got mics moving around. I want you to sort of like answer each other's questions if that works for you, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to start with you, Danielle. So tell us again what you do.
So I am a people partner at Procter & Stevenson. So that's essentially my role is to sort of help empower people through their work, create strategies where people can sort of thrive in the business, help us achieve our goals, create really good culture.
So it's all about so they need to be mentally fit.
Absolutely.
And at Talk Club, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a mentally fit society. So and that's what we're trying to do in this conversation. The whole conversation is your business mentally fit? Is what we wanted to pose out there. So as a starter, what would you recommend as a minimum that every business should have in place regarding the mental health support?
So I sort of have 2 sides to this, the answer to this question. I think, first of all, having support such as mental health first aiders, employee assistance programs are really important. I think going further and having good private medical insurance in place, because that often now has really good therapy so that people can access that not just when they are in crisis, but if they establish that they need some ongoing help. To sort of move things forward and be less reactive. But the other side to it for me is about creating like a really good culture where people feel that they're able to speak up, They have empathetic leadership teams who will ask the difficult questions, really understand their people, how they're feeling, and not be afraid to talk about it, as well as things, from my perspective, having really good job design as well. So not putting people into positions where they are not working to their strengths. That often causes a lot of stress in the workplace, and making sure there's a good environment where people can thrive and be themselves.
So is most of your work done in the building? Is it sort of like, yeah? So you've got, so the culture is actually inside the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if I move on to Mark, so Mark is you're at Hastings.
I am indeed.
Yeah, and we've been working with you for a while now.
Yes, I was just explaining to the guys here that I literally went to the NEC Health and Wellbeing. I saw Brendan, and it was just by pure coincidence that I was looking for something to support our male population, and I went and saw the talk, and I thought, yes, and that was, I'm going to say March 2022.
Okay.
And it's evolved since then.
Yeah. So tell us about how Hastings makeup is, and sort of like what you've got in place over there.
So I'm extremely lucky that they've given me autonomy to trial things. I mean, it is a second and see sometimes. Some things don't work, some things do. I think with the Talk Club, when we introduced it, I was extremely nervous about how is this going to, land? And I was just saying that the first one we did, and I know that Ben hosted the first half a dozen, and the 8 guys who were in there started, half of them were bursting into tears, literally within the first 10, 15 minutes. And I knew then from that moment onwards, right, this is going to work. I just need to find out how that's going to work. But alternative from that, we have leadership, which is really important. They go through a one-day mental health workshop. We need to encourage compassionate and knowledgeable leaders. There, for me, are the gatekeepers. They will allow or give their teams the opportunity to go and get the tools and resources we have in place. So the CAP, or the the CAP, so the Colleague Assistance Program, which we use, that's important. It's about promoting it, and it's all about communication, education, and awareness. And from that, the model that we use within the Wellbeing Program, which we introduced in 2017, were Wellbeing Champs. They're my foot soldiers. They are my eyes, my ears, and my voice. So they can promote it with any initiatives we've got coming up. They can promote, etc., and do the job for me. I end up just being the gatekeeper and make sure the materials are right. So other than that, we have menopause cafes, which are running themselves now, which is great. I couldn't run the menopause cafes. I had to get people in to do that. And now we're just experimenting on other things. We're doing a creative arts and crafts club, because that for a population of our people, that's important. So it's such a broad subject, and you've got to make sure that I have the capacity to do that. But the leaders are the most important. The Wellbeing Champs and the mental health first aiders, they form the structure for me to help me to deliver what I want to deliver.
So I mean, I'm hearing we hear it quite a lot. We've used it as kids to sort of like lead by example.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, from what I'm hearing, for culture and for sort of like inside leadership leads, it's sort of like, if you show good practice,
Sure,
then that's going to filter down. How big is Hastings Direct?
it's about 4,500 colleagues.
And how many of those are on site, and how many work remotely?
Well, we do hybrid now since COVID, and that's working out really well. That really is helping our colleagues' well-being. We have a site in Leicester, quite a heavier side of the South Asian community. So things like, you have to look at the demographics. So in there, you have diabetes, which is massive. So I need to adjust and adapt the wellbeing program for each site. We're down in the South Coast. They hate me saying it, but they are slightly older. So the stroke department in the NHS, I bring them in every now and again. It's about that early intervention.
Yeah. And it's understanding from what it sounds like, it's understanding you, from both of you, it's understanding your staff, understanding the people that are working there, the different cultures, the different ways that people are using.
Yeah.
Gav.
Hello.
Me and you we talk a lot, don't we?
Yeah.
We talk a lot.
Well, I listen.
You're paid to listen on Tuesdays anyway. You've talked to a lot of businesses since we came up with this, since we came up with the idea of working with businesses. What have you seen, and sort of what would you recommend?
Well, it's come about because of we didn't mean to work with businesses. You know, obviously we were a charity working with trying to set up talk clubs in the community with men, and I kept getting asked by businesses, "Do you work with businesses?" And obviously I was like, "No, why?" And the more I spoke to businesses, I realised that it almost feels like they're about 20 years behind when it comes to mental health, and that is my experience. And then I met Mark, who I must admit, and I'm not just saying this, but every time I talk to a business, I name drop Mark and Hastings because they are doing it right. They're trying things, they're evolving, they're not sitting still, and that's why Mark came to me and said, "Look, we've got," I think it was like 5 menopause groups, and at the time he said, "But we've got nothing for men." And that's why you approached Talk Club. And then we said, okay, great, let's set up some talking groups, let's do that. And so I want to say that he deserves the accolades for that, because Mark is forward thinking and trying things, and fantastic. So hats off to him. And so, yeah, I think what I found very quickly from talking to businesses, and we work with British Airways to Airbus to Pizza Rover, so small independents to huge corporates. It's not, you know, it's anyone and everyone in between. And the common thing I'm finding when I'm talking to these businesses is prevention. That's the one thing people are not focusing on. Actually, it's very much a broken fix-it model that we work on. Yes, we have EAPs. Yes, we've got phone lines. Yes, we've got men's health first aid. Fantastic. But they're for people who are broken, to be quite honest. And that's what and that costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to have therapists on tap, a lot of money to have EAP programs, a lot of money to train mental health first aiders at 300 quid a pop. There's over 1 million mental health first aiders in this country. So that's 300 million quid right there. And the biggest problem with mental health first aid now, which is a whole other conversation, is they're trained up, let loose into the building, no follow-up training. And the one thing I'm finding from this as well is the first thing I ask a business, I say, how many mental health first aiders you got? And they say, we've got 20. I'm like, great, fantastic. Who looks after the mental health first aiders? Oh, we've got a WhatsApp group. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to, you're asking these people, it's like saying, that, don't worry, imagine having a fire marshal in the building who has to put on the yellow coat every time there's a fire alarm goes off, getting into the car park and getting everyone there and go, yeah, you've got to go back in the building and put the fire out now as well. It's irresponsible. And so with mental health first aid, I'm going off on a tangent already, it's in the first question. But so there is an element there of hearing all these things. And to be quite honest, as a therapist, I was quite alarmed on the safety side of it, that we were impacting these people and putting these people in the workplace through putting them in, I would say actually use the word danger. We're putting these people in danger and not looking after them correctly. We've got a duty of care. And I actually heard a wellbeing conference recently where someone asked this to a lawyer about mental health first aid, and the lawyer said if you had a mental health first aider and they were written off from work with stress, they could sue that company, because if they've not looked after those people correctly, then you've got a duty of care for them. So there is a duty of care to be responsible for those people. And I think as business, we go back to that question of prevention, it's putting things in. And that's why when I say to businesses, look, let's look at this differently. Let's keep people mentally fit. So if we are asking that question every day with our work colleagues, how are you out of 10, for example, while making a cup of tea, and we've got that number. Now, it doesn't matter if I ask you and you don't tell me the truth and you say I'm an 8. Okay, that's okay. That's fine. But if you walk back to your desk and go, actually, I lied to Gavin then, I'm actually a 5, I'm struggling a little bit, you're now aware of what's going on. You're now starting to think, actually, I'm a 5 and things aren't great for me at the moment. And you can start to think, okay, what can I do to get my number? So we're putting responsibility back onto the employee, aren't we? We're saying, actually, we are responsible for our mental health. I'm not responsible for your mental health, you are. And it's the same with the business of empowering people to go, actually, what can we do for ourselves to keep ourselves mentally fit and look after ourselves? Then before we get to the 1s and the 2s and the 3s, when you need to contact an EAP, you need to speak to a mental health first aider. So that was my experience of first talking to businesses, I was quite shocked, to be quite honest, of how bad it is and how unsupported it is. And that's why I started by saying Mark is doing a fantastic job, because not all businesses, there's a lot of businesses doing great stuff, but I do think we need to update how we look at how we support our staff and how we look after them long term. So I dropped the mic.
And he's gone. It's interesting because we posed a question out to on LinkedIn. We sort of and then we're going to get onto this question later about responsibility. Whose responsibility? Who's responsible for our mental health? Because when it comes to our physical health, a lot of those things where you wouldn't expect someone to lift up these things and put their back out. We were all taught to when we were doing our working in supermarkets, we were all taught to sort of like as a Saturday job, taught to lift things. So it's like it's almost in that same sort of vein for me. I mean, Rowan, you're a Mr. NHS. You sort of like you're single-handedly keeping us NHS going. From a psychological point of view, and sort of, I mean, what Gav's talking about there is prevention, and what we're talking about is trying to keep the pressure off the NHS. That's a lot of what TC does. I mean, what is your point of view, and what would you recommend?
While we were talking, I did a bit of reckoning, and it just kind of came to my head, and I realised I actually spend more time at work and with my colleagues than I do with my kids. And it's a massive, massive, massive part of our lives. Like there is no escaping that. It's a huge part of our lives, and a lot of that, we're walking around with a cloak on. We've got a mask on. We're not visible. We're not transparent. We're not sharing our inner workings. You can go home and you can stomp around and you can talk to your other half and talk about what a rubbish day you had, but you can't do that at work because you've got to keep a face up. I think the most important thing for employers is to provide a culture whereby people can be open and honest and put their hand up and say, this isn't right, this isn't working, I feel I'm about to break. This is pure anecdotally, but probably in the last 10 years or so, something I really have really noticed is an increase in working professionals presenting to me in the crisis setting. So that's the point at which things are broken. That's the point at which people are saying, well, actually, the ship, the horse has already bolted. I am at a point of suicidality. I am at a point of being unable to work, being unable to meet my other expectations, being unable to leave the house, to care for myself, to care for my children. And why is that? Well, actually, society is changing. The expectations on us as employees are greater. They're big. They are growing, and they're rapidly changing. And then all of a sudden, and amongst all of it, you've got things like the pandemic, and like, how did that mess things up? We've gone from having this sort of work environment where we're all kind of used to seeing each other, and you can chat around the water cooler, as it were. And then all of a sudden, I started a job in the pandemic, and then realised I haven't seen any of these guys face to face. I don't know how tall my colleagues are. And I'm 6'4", so it's a bit of a funny thing. It's like I'm sort of like sat in front of this microphone and thinking, we don't know each other, we don't talk to each other. So thinking about prevention versus cure, or prevention versus firefighting, which is the thing that kind of draws me in, is that how do we get away from that sort of firefighting model of caring for ourselves and for each other? I think it's all about culture. So I think it's about having a platform, having something that we can engage with, having it so it's all Mr. Such and Such has to come and see HR now because they're struggling, they're breaking, they're unable to do what they're meant to do. And it's about adapting and integrating all of those roles so that things look a bit different. And I know that's what my colleagues are doing is sort of modernising and thinking about like a non-punitive way of addressing people's difficulties.
moving away from that broken fix it way of a lot of what we've done in the past when it comes to our mental health. And I mean, that's the reason why we use mental fitness, because it's it's a positive language moving forward.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark, you since having Talk Club in place, how do you think it's impacted the overall sort of mental fitness of the business?
I think we are still at the early stages here. I think as I said, introduced it in November 2022. For the first year, some of the meetings were pitiful. There was only about 1 or 2, but we still kept it going. The team captains kept on hosting, facilitating. And then for some reason, back end of last year, we started seeing more guys go. And I've asked every single new person coming in, what drove you to come here today? And it's all word of mouth. However many posters or emails you want to send out, no, limited. It's word of mouth. It's guys talking to guys. So I think at the moment we've scraped the surface. I think there's more to come, and that's why I'm more excited about expanding that and looking at a male health strategy for next year. But that's in the making. We're very lucky. We started the wellbeing program in 2018, so that was before the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, we were kind of ahead of the game. We had wellbeing champs in place. We had mental health first aiders in place. We had a colleague assistance program. We had a financial wellbeing provider. So we had things that we could promote within the communications during that awful period of everybody in lockdown. And as a way, the pandemic has done more for wellbeing than I will ever do in my life, in my career. So I know when we came out of that, it was about making sure the leaders changed their approach to their style of leadership from a reactive approach to a proactive approach. And that was really key, and that's what we're trying to drive. It's about getting boundary setting, making sure they're not getting sucked into those conversations, which ended up with me sometimes coming in and having to have a conversation. And so we've seen very few of those over the last, and you're spot on, Gavin, about the mental health first aiders. So many companies, when I hear from other companies going, well, we never have anybody approaching us for the minute, well, that's probably because your culture. You know, you're not given that. We have a duty of care as an organisation to look after that cohort of volunteers who have, let's be honest about it, sometimes really traumatic conversations. And the good thing is the more we promote it, the more senior leaders get involved, the more the HR gets involved, and it weaves its way in through policies and procedures, etc. Still got a long way to go, but the message is out there. So it is about creating a safe and confidential environment, giving people the opportunity to talk about how they are without feeling the stigma or discrimination.
And that's really interesting for me, because it seems to be the first thing to go, right? It's sort of like when the crunch starts hitting, it's sort of like we'll lose the wellbeing stuff. We'll sort of lose that. That's budget goes. Yeah. But when it actually comes down to it, it's going to cost you more money in the long run if your staff are all off.
It's true. When I first started this job, people were going, well, how's that going to filter down to the bottom line? Is it going to help my absence and my attrition? And I go, I'd be a very brave man to turn around and say yes. I'd like to think it helps, but no. If you're looking at it from that angle, then you're approaching well-being very, very in the wrong place. It's
an investment.
It is, yeah.
I'm going to build on what Gav said earlier, Danielle. So he was talking about companies being sued and sort of having the correct training in place regarding mental health first aid. Does that concern you?
Yeah, always.
Yeah. Because culturally, people-wise, does that sort of help? I mean, what's your feeling on it?
Yeah, definitely. It does concern me. I think also it's sort of the result of not having proactive strategies in place, like you said. I think that's really important to think of it as a bigger picture rather than a quick fix here, there, and trying to cater to individual needs rather than one size fits all. Unfortunately, when you work in HR, a lot of stuff sort of seems to fall to you rather than an overall responsibility on actually it's not on HR to fix these things. You're a line manager, you're a leader, you need to understand your people. You can't share that responsibility. You need to have those conversations, really think about their needs, really listen to them, which I think can, is a way to resolving some of these positions that companies find themselves in. It's almost go to HR. This person is trying to juggle lots of other balls. They give a flippant answer, and then it ends in disaster.
It's sort of like a push off of blame.
Absolutely, yeah. When actually everyone is responsible for supporting their people.
I mean, like we talk quite a lot, especially in. So I grew up in the ad industry, and burnout was a big thing. I mean, like Gav, we talk about this quite a lot. We talk about burnout and how to avoid it. Why is mental fitness important to avoiding burnout?
Again, it comes back to that awareness, doesn't it, and of looking after the self. That old saying of work and rest. Work and no rest is burnout. So I think if you're mentally fit, and I think if you're daily practicing that, as we were saying earlier about if you're checking in with yourself, I mean, you can do that at home when you wake up, and also and with your work colleagues, and even just those basic things that they sort of get taken for granted a little bit, but diet, sleep, and exercise, I mean, they are a huge impact on our numbers. I know when my numbers are dropping, it's definitely related to those three things, and I know if I'm on top of those three things, my numbers are up. So it's simple psychoeducation that people sort of take for granted a little bit because it's all over TikTok and Instagram, and we're force-fed all this stuff all the time. And we're like, oh, I know, diet, sleep, exercise. But actually, it's really powerful and really important. And I think if you get those three things right, you'll be mentally fit and your numbers will rise. For me, I would say start there regarding, especially with burnout. Rest is key, and awareness of when. And that's why I think the flip side of that question is, how do you know when you're burnt out? That's when it comes back to what we try and figure out at Talk Club with solutions. We're a solution. We always think, okay, how can we get it from this angle? So how do you know when you're burnt out? Or when's your tipping point? It's normally too late. And that's why I keep going again back to prevention, rather than look at from, well, I'll wait until I'm burnt out and then I'll rest. Well, actually, if I'm aware of my numbers and I get down to a 5, that's the point. That's my point where I need to do something about it before I get to a 4, which goes back to the initial point of self-awareness and prevention.
I mean, we have we try to practice what we preach. We're only a small team. There's only sort of 5 of us, sort of like on salaried, but we have a sort of a daily. We check in, on a Google Drive, and sort of like just you check in and check out. And when we are working remotely, it's actually quite good because you can sort of say, okay, so and so's a bit low today. I'm going to give them a call. I'm going to stop everything. Or when you walk in, okay, you've checked in at a 6. Why are you 6? Do we need to take some time off? Do we need to move that meeting? And it's sort of, to us, it's sort of like running the thing, and again, we're only small, but we feel like we know our team. And I think that's sort of like, back to culture. Like we're dealing with mental health and mental ill health and suicide, and we're saying these words quite a lot. But you have to sort of like, you have to take stock, and you have to sort of like be honest about where you are. Rowan, from an NHS point of view, you can cut that bit out. Why do you think it's important for employers to help the people with their mental health more?
A really nice change that we've seen in recent years, and that is widely recognised, is that people are reaching out more about their mental health. People are more willing to talk about their mental well-being. If we cast our eyes to, I'm sorry to point when there's a camera there, but if we cast our eyes to Liam Gallagher wearing a Talk Club t-shirt, now if you think about him in the 90s, he was all swagger and snarls, wasn't he? But now he's wearing a t-shirt promoting a mental health charity. So the culture of society has changed, and with that, people seeking help has changed. The rates of people seeking help has changed. So as the rates of people seeking help has gone up, so too have the finite resource, the threshold at which the finite resources of the NHS has so too increased. So that basically means that the resources of the NHS become more and more stretched. It's harder to get help from secondary mental health services. It's well recognised. The mental health services aren't particularly underfunded in the UK. It's just proportionate to need. And then where do things fall? Well, the NHS leans very heavily on the third and charity sector, so third sector organisations. But actually, if we think about from the ground up, creating grassroots communities whereby we can check in and talk about our mental health and say, actually, I'm a bit of a fool today. So it'd be pretty good if we can think about that and adapt things appropriately to avoid things being piled on top and piled on top. There's a psychological model which is, sorry, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, but there's a psychological model called the diathesis stress model. And the diathesis, it's a Latin. It's a Latin word. God. It's a Latin word that it describes actually sort of like a length. So it's we talk about the middle of the femur bone. That's the diathesis, is the middle, and it's the diathesis stress model of thinking, whereby you're loading more and more stuff onto it, and you're loading more and more stuff on, and then actually there's a vulnerability in that diathesis, and then broken. So if we're creating a culture whereby actually we can stop things being loaded, we can stop that weight being piled onto things, then you're not hopefully going to have employees reach the point at which they're thresholding those finite NHS resources.
I mean, it sounds like to me, it sounds from taking what everyone said here, it sounds like back to one of the questions we put out at the beginning was whose responsibility is it? So whose responsibility is your mental health? So it's my responsibility, as is always my responsibility, as it is my responsibility with everything else that I do, but also the culture of the place I work and the employees I work, the employers I work for, and the people I work with, my bosses to sort of like to show me that this is good practice, and that will hopefully impact on reducing bad mental health in society and help the NHS for what they actually need. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I used to work in secure psychiatric services, and everywhere you go, there's always a sign saying the same thing: security is everyone's responsibility. Now, if we transpose that word security with mental health, and it's everyone's responsibility, we can't just have a culture whereby we're loading stuff onto people on and on and on and on and on until they break, and then it's their fault. So there needs to be a bit of a sharing of that burden of responsibility. Excuse the other tangent. There was a Hungarian psychiatrist called Thomas Sars, and he had a saying. So he had a famous saying, which is that insanity is the only sane response to an insane society. So actually, we need to cut part of that out. We need to shift the insane society and start to think about adaptability.
That's fantastic. Well, look, I'm gonna open it up to you guys now, and because we're filming and because we're recording, you're going to come up here. So sorry about that. Has anyone got any questions to start with, or I will pick on people? So anyone got a starter question? Or I'm going to pick on Nern. Okay, come over here. No, take this one. You hold that because you're going to be answering that.
All right, cool. First of all, thank you very much to Talk Club for everything you do. Out of 10, I'm currently an 8. I guess it's for Mark, if that's cool, with regards to Hastings.
Yep.
Or any senior leader. Do you, and this is open to Talk Club as well, when you're sat with Hastings, does the senior leaders engage with Talk Club, like the CEO, the senior leadership team? Because I think it's... Anyway, I'll let you answer that, and then I'll have a comment.
They know about it, and it comes up in forums. So when I set out, before the Talk Club, when I set out the Wellbeing Programme, we had done lots of different initiatives, and you usually find with initiatives in organisations, as soon as the balloons are burst and the confetti is swept up, we move on to the next thing. So I always knew that there was going to be a lot of sceptical colleagues. And it turned out that as we were starting to evolve as a programme, these colleagues were telling the CEO, they were telling the senior leaders about how the Wellbeing Programme and how it's looking after them. So that's evolved. Now the Men's Club, I'm hearing it from middle management, senior leaders. They're talking about it because their colleagues are talking about it. And I give you an example. We have a roadshow, and the CEO will deliver the roadshow in front of hundreds of people, and he'll do them throughout the month. And I got fed back because I was on holiday the week before and said somebody stood up, one of the guys in the Talk Club, asked a question in front of 400 people, and CEO Exco saying if it wasn't for the talk club, he's not sure where he would be. His wife was struggling with a condition, and he said it's the only time of the week that he's able to talk. And he thanked. And you could see people just, and that for me, he did more for the talk club and Exco than I could ever do. And it's little stories like that I hear a lot of.
Yeah. Can I ask another question? That's cool. Yeah, that's really meant. I think, how would you, if there's any other companies here that are looking to go with Talk Club,
yep,
how would you suggest to them that they access the wellbeing budget to activate Talk Club? Because every company, every leader should be engaging it, from my opinion. Yeah. I'd be interested to hear your views on how other companies could keep doing this.
We set out a budget to get you guys on board, to train up the team captains, but I also knew that wasn't going to be long term. So we then become self-sufficient, and it's run in-house by my mental health first aiders. So none of my team captains, they're all mental health first aiders. I've used my mental health first aider tool belt more in the Talk Club than I have at any other time. And it's become self-sufficient. You're doing some more training because we've doubled the size of the groups. So it's not really costing me that much money now because we're doing it in-house.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Fantastic second question.
Just to answer that as well as we're not expensive either. We're pretty cheap compared to EAP and mental health first aid. But also, the first thing I say to businesses is it's free to use How You're Out of 10. You can use that tomorrow. Absolutely, and the good thing to come out of Airbus, that they're so big, and we don't actually work with them anymore. But the legacy with that is, I do know that the Airbus as a company now use How You Out of 10 every day. With every meeting they have across the world, they start with How You Out of 10. So that's a huge impact. So we're really proud of that. That's amazing to do. But that's free. That doesn't cost any money. I mean, and you can do it tomorrow.
That was the thing, wasn't it? It was sort of like when we originally, if you all pick up one of these, they're at the back there. This is all you need to run a talk club. This is actually all you need, right? You don't need anything else from the charity. How are you out of 10? And these are the rules on how to run a talk club. What we're trying to do when we're working with businesses, especially, is offering that extra layer of support. So sort of Ben or Gav or whoever the other therapists we bring in to sort of support those mental health first aiders or the other pieces we're doing. It's about those extra layers of support. It's safeguarding. And
a lot of the things that I'm doing now actually are doing more of a mental health audit. So I go in and go, well, let's look at what you've already got. And let's see how we can improve it. It's not a competition. It's not trying to make money, to be honest. We're a charity. We're not here to do that. We're here to help. So I go in and just go, okay, let's look at what you got. Is that working? Is it not? What's not working? I've got mental health first aid. How many people use mental health this month? I had 5 people. Okay, great. Can we help with this? Can we get some workshops in? Can we get some more training in? So it's identifying the need, because that's the thing as well. Is every business we work with, it's different. Every single one, and you have to approach it like that.
Thank you very much. Next question. Oh, silence. Nan, come on up, you come.
Hello, my name is Nairn Robertson. I'm the founder of Active Teams, and we're close friends with Talk Club, I would say. And we motivate and inspire employees to move and exercise more, which comes back to the 3 things you mentioned earlier of diet, sleep, and exercise. And I guess I just have a question about whether you have anything in place in your organizations to help encourage, well, any of those 3 things, diet, sleep, and exercise, in your staff, and use the preventative power of those 3 things?
That's difficult. I think it's up to the individual. All we are is the enablers. We just create the platform, and as long as we promote it, I learn from our providers what they've got on a regular basis that I didn't know they changed that. Most of the EAP, we've got Thrive, our mental health app people, we've got Nudge. It's all there. It's just breaking it down. One of the things I learned after the pandemic is people get quite lazy in finding that information. It should be frictionless. It should be kids these days. It's 3 clicks and you should be where you need to be, and they give up. And leaders don't need an excuse to give up. I remember them saying to me during the pandemic, "Make it easy for me." So I created pages to make sure if someone's off with bronchitis, These are the companies that will help and support you get into a better place. So it is about creating, but it is up to the individual. That's kind of what we do, and we make sure we communicate it as often as we can.
And with that communication, have you found any methods that work particularly well with communication? We find that you just can't communicate enough. You just over-communicate, and eventually somebody will get the right message at the right time and take advantage of whatever the service is. Is that similar to your findings?
The best way of our communication, I think I mentioned it earlier on, is word of mouth. So I will equip the Wellbeing Champs and Mental Health Thursdays every month with what we're focusing on. We'll link it to an awareness day, which always works quite well. And then we'll put in there what our providers can support you in that particular awareness campaign. That seems to get through a lot quicker, but make it simple, make it short, make it snappy, because they don't want to be reading loads of stuff. That's when you see the utilisation starting to go up.
I was going to say something that works for us quite well is like doing lunch and learns. We've just done one around financial well-being because that was a focus for last month. We had someone who came in who handles all our pensions, and we had a really good turnout of people. You know, it's sometimes a bit of a boring subject about financial planning, but it worked really, really well. People really engaged with it.
Have you got any thoughts, Rowan?
Do you do anything around exercise?
Well, some of our providers will have videos that people can do. We were going to do a gym, but a lot of people don't like going to the gym, so they prefer to do it at... So we've got a big event coming up in a few weeks' time. We do it as our annual event. It's called Wellfest. And so I've changed it this year. I've invited different companies to do some of those short exercises, chair yoga, cardio moves, etc. Something that they can introduce to their daily habit, and hopefully habitual changes will take time.
Yeah, I think people often think that exercise, in order to exercise, you need to go for a sort of 40-minute run or a 30-minute cycle, and generally as a society we just need to move away from that. Doing 5-minute, going up and down the stairs, it's about movement and activity more than exercise, and we all need to mentally move away from that picture we have of exercise.
Yeah, small individual changes that will have a long-term positive outcome.
I thought it was interesting what you were saying, Nan, when we first met about that, and it just goes back to what I was saying about education. That I didn't know that the NHS recommended you do 150 minutes a week. Did anyone else know that? Is it just me? Right? Some people knew. But it's interesting how that is what's recommended for us. Yet most people don't know that information, and that's something that obviously you guys are focusing on when it comes to the business.
Yeah, that's our main goal, is to try and get staff to aware and achieve that 150 minutes per week. And if you can achieve 150 minutes, which is attainable for most people, particularly if you factor in that brisk walking counts towards those 150 minutes, hitting that goal, it unlocks a host of mental and physical health benefits, and can reduce your risk of early death by up to 30% just by moving for 150 minutes per week. Interestingly, if you're a child, it's 60 minutes per day is what we should be aiming for.
Well, yeah, because another one of those sort of big statements that come up, but they said that sitting is the new smoking, isn't it, to our health? You know, that we do spend a lot of time on our bums, and we need to get up and get moving. So I think that, again, with 150 minutes is something interesting for business to think about with movement and those minutes. Yeah.
And I think as well, with sort of like with hybrid working as well, there's lots of sitting there. There's lots of sitting there. Have we got any more questions before we go on to final thoughts? Do you want to come up? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay. Hello, my name's Sophie. I work for Origin Workspace, a co-working space and serviced offices here in Bristol, which is where we are right now. It really fascinated me what you were saying when you were talking about having the mental health first aiders but where's the support for the mental health first aiders, and how it's kind of a near miss. And I was just wondering if there are any other examples any of you have about other near misses where companies are like, we promote well-being, we do this, but actually they're missing the point by like some stretch, or like it's almost right, but not quite.
the first thing that comes to my mind about that is, I think, again, I'm saying it again, but it's education. I think people don't really know the difference between mental illness and mental health. They think they're the same thing, and so the word of suicide and mental illness, everybody's scared of those words, and so if those words come up, literally people do this and recoil. And so I think people are scared to step into that and understand it a little bit more, because it is the unknown. So that's where I think a lot of the misses come from, is they don't actually understand what people's needs are. So that's what I would say for that.
I was going to say the other thing that I mentioned earlier was sort of applying this one size fits all. So there's good intentions, but then it's sort of tarring everyone with the same brush, thinking, well, that person went through this before and it worked for them, so it's going to work for somewhere else, where, you know, everyone has individual needs, and that's where you have to be really curious and really listen to what those are.
There's a couple of things here. I think it's having a blended approach to the tools and resources you have. So it's about having the right conversation with the right colleague, utilising the right intervention. And we've proven that by introducing another Thrive mental health app, as well as our CAP. We noticed we haven't seen a decline in one of them. They're just going exactly the same. And so I think once you open that Pandora's box, you cannot put it back down again. Mm-hmm. And I think businesses need to remember that. You can't give colleagues something and then take it away. You know, it's not all about free fruit and discounted gym membership anymore. It's a lot more than that, and there's a talent pool out there that's much, much smaller than it used to be. And so attrition and, you know, attracting talent and retaining talent is important. And I think businesses need to know that that well-being now is part of that, of getting that into the business.
So just thinking about near misses, so I work for the NHS, and I can't remember, it was something like #1 employer in the UK or something like that, after, or #2, second after McDonald's. And actually, I'm not here to talk about NHS provision, but one of the things that has jumped out to me, you know, throughout my entire career is the lack of support for people, you know, who deal with these difficult things. So first, who's going to first aid the mental health first aiders? You know, it's such a valid comment and such a valid idea. And, you know, free fruit and a discounted gym membership would actually be pretty cushy. That'd be great. I'd love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question, and thank you so much to you guys for that. So, do you want to do some final thoughts? Do you want to do you want to start up here, Danielle? You give us some final thoughts of how you're feeling about mental fitness. How you're feeling about mental fitness in business, and what would you like to see in the future?
That's a big question. I think it's good that we're raising awareness and it's opening up conversations. So I think that's really good. I just want to see more of that and more of this sort of individual approach rather than this one size fits all, trying to be more proactive about it and thinking about the bigger picture rather than small sort of siloed interventions.
Thank you. Mark?
Be patient. It will happen, but to have belief in what you're trying to do. There were many times in my career as a wellbeing manager that I suddenly put my hands on my head and thought, it's not working. But sometimes you need to take a step back. You need to think about where you've come from, where you currently are, and where you are trying to get to. And actually, it takes other people to remind you, just remember where we were a year ago. So that's important. But the second thing I think is ownership. Ownership on the individual. We shouldn't just apply it onto the leader, because it's an impossible task. So the individual needs to turn around and go, I'm not okay. How on earth is the leader meant to help? So that's where culture, again, comes in.
Thank you. Ro?
Yeah, I think we're all preaching from the same hymn sheet, really. I think the main message is about prevention for me. So it's about creating a culture whereby people can address those things. You know, those 3 pillars that Gav mentioned. think about diet and exercise, and what you're doing today. What does that look like? Who am I talking to about that? And just creating a culture whereby we can prevent people breaking, systems breaking, people not being able to carry on. So I think prevention over firefighting.
I mean, it's really interesting for me that the priority. Put yourself as a priority. I mean, because it is actually like, we go, no, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. No, if you fall over, I mean, we talk about it a lot, don't we? If you fall over, it's sort of like everything falls over with you. I mean, so you've got to prioritise yourself. We've in a culture, we've always sort of seen it as selfish, but it's actually going, you've got to prioritise yourself. So it's that. And then Gav, your final thoughts?
Well, thank you to Origin and Rachel for putting this on today, and everyone else for attending here. Fantastic and great questions there. And Sean, thank you so much. And Chloe, of course, thank you for, and the guests as well for coming today. It's been really interesting and to hear everyone's thoughts. And I think, like we said at the beginning, really, it does start with the self. It comes back to the self, what you were saying. And I think we've got to start with that. It's the most simple thing, isn't it? Starting with the how are you out of 10, asking yourself, what your numbers are, what can you do to help maintain your mental fitness and maybe get your numbers up. But also, if those days where your numbers are a little bit low, then go with that too, and it is what it is. And I think resilience is a key word. That's not come up today actually, and it's a key word that it comes up a lot in discussions about mental health with business. A lot of businesses say to me, almost off the record, I'm worried about the resilience of my workforce. I'm worried that they're not able to stand up, and what do I do about that? Because that question is a hard question. I'm sure you guys have heard it a million times. How do I build a resilient workforce? And I think, well, it comes back to the basics, I think, of the diet, sleep and exercise. Let's start with that, keeping ourselves mentally fit. That is a good start with resilience, because I think then if you become more aware of the struggles you've had and you've got through those struggles, like, oh yeah, a month ago I was 3s and 4s and I went to a talk club, and now I'm 5s and 6, I'm going to the gym, I'm eating better, I'm 7 and 8. That meant that mentality has changed. You've already changed that neurologically. I'm going to get deep now about neurons. You've changed your brain process as well, but actually I can do this. That's how we work as humans. I can get through this. I can survive. I can achieve. I can thrive. So I think resilience, mental fitness, all positive language. I think the positivity is really important. And yes, we do lots of things like workshops, and we've got listen support, and we've got groups for mental health first aiders, and we're doing everything we can to help with that. But it always comes back to people, and and managing themselves first. And I think if we can do that, we'll have a mentally fit society.
Thank you very much. And I think if we've got a mentally fit society, if we're mentally fit, we're mentally strong. And we all need to be strong. We know how it is when it comes to our physical health, about being strong, and we talk to our children about being strong. But I think when it comes to, we have to be strong here. Well, I'd like to thank you all for your time. I'd like to thank you all for coming along and being part of this. Can we all give a little round of applause for our And thank you all for turning up. But that was nice. Now let's go and watch the Arsenal. So we'll, if anyone wants to chat to any of the gang with wearing How Are You Out of Tens, or grab a flyer or a business card, please do. And thank you very much, as you said. Thank you very much to Origin for having us.
I did thank John at the back as well.
Cheers,
Sorry,
Johnny.
John.
Love Johnny.
Sat there filming. Sorry, John. Didn't thank you.
Thank you very much.